It's been a good week. I think obviously just the transitioning to the start of school and players getting acclimated to the schedule. I thought it's been good. It's been good to get guys back practicing. So all in all, positive week so far. With we'll have a decent sized walkthrough tomorrow and a mock game on Saturday.
Coach, you've talked about what's the difference between a player-led team and a coach-led team. How's that going for the team, going to a player-led? And also, along that same story, you had Admiral McRaven come in. What was that experience like? Did he address the team? Yeah.
I think one thing when you're trying to become a player-led team is, from a coaching perspective, you're trying to point out the opportunities. When is an opportunity for the players to lead? They want to. It's not about the want to. It's about taking advantage of the opportunities when they present themselves. And sometimes it's in a positive moment. Sometimes it's in a moment of adversity. But as a coach, sometimes you have to kind of show them now is the time. Now is the moment, and here is the way to go about it. So I think we're continually working on it. We've got a great team. We've got guys that have a bunch of want to and a lot of buy-in, but through it all, they're still learning how to. And I think we've made great strides there. We've got awesome leadership. It's just, capturing those moments when they present themselves. Admiral McRaven was awesome. I think he definitely had the utmost attention of our team. I thought it was pretty fascinating to watch our players as he spoke and the presence in which that he speaks. There weren't a lot of backs up against the back of their chairs. There was a lot of guys sitting forward, a lot of guys very attentive to his message, and I thought it was fantastic. I'm looking forward to having him back.
Steve, what is a mock game? How do you go about? Is that just another scrimmage, or how?
No. We go through A to Z as if it's game day, from pregame meal to meetings to walkthroughs to pregame warm-ups to uniforms to actually playing and going through over 40 different scenarios as if the game were to occur. From we'll kick the ball off, and we have to substitute, and then we got to substitute if we get a stop, to punt return, to scoring a touchdown, to in the middle of a drive, our center's helmet might pop off and the backup center's got to be ready to go in. And so we try to play out a lot of scenarios to get our guys ready for games. Practice is difficult because a lot of what we do is scripted. And even when you scrimmage, sometimes we try to simulate game-like activities, but it's a lot of times offense versus defense. And so special teams have to have their own segment. When we mock a game, we truly play it as if it's a game, and we are all on one sideline. And going through those substitutions, TV timeouts, different things are really important to stay in the flow of the game. And even for coaches, like from a defensive coach's perspective, when we scrimmage, you're calling it every play. When you go to a mock game, when the defense is off the field, the offense is calling it. The defense is making their adjustments. So we try to take the players through all of that so that they can find the rhythm in how the game goes.
You said at the beginning of camp the questions that you probably most wanted answered: offensive line, secondary, kicking game. How do you feel offensive line, secondary?
Yeah, I think we're closer. I think the emergence of Kelvin has been helpful at left tackle. I think that's given us a lot of flexibility with Andre in utilizing him. I think Cole Hudson has done a nice job emerging as well. So I feel comfortable up front. In the secondary, I feel really good about our ability to understand our coverages and to communicate. We're communicating at a really high level comparatively, especially to where we were a year ago and even in spring. And then, we're making plays on the ball, which is a real positive. In the kicking game, I've seen a lot of growth in 3 weeks. I've seen us it's not just the kicker, but I think inevitably our coverage units, our return units, all those things are really starting to come together, which is an underrated aspect of the game, which takes time. It takes time to find that rhythm in your kicking game and on special teams. So, in general, I feel better today than I felt 3 weeks ago about those things, but we're not a finished product either at any one of those three.
Carrot can play right tackle too.
Yes, yeah, very flexible.
Coach, three guys I kind of was curious about. Ethan Burke, seemed like he got some run at maybe at some second team. Justice Finkley, I hadn't really asked you about him in training camp. And even Michael Taft, I've heard that he's made some plays in some new scrimmages.
So Ethan has been just a welcomed addition to the team. He's a guy who was not here in spring, got here in the summer. He's got a lot of length. He's got natural rush ability. A very tough-minded kid, and he's found his way kind of into the two deep. And when he's in there, he does some really positive things. So we're encouraged by him. I think the beauty for Ethan is that he's got a lot of room for growth. I think his best days are ahead of him, but he's definitely made an impact. Justice. I thought was, and I met with him on this. I thought he got off to a little bit of a slow start in camp comparatively to kind of how he ended spring ball. But I think that he has picked it up. But I have to remind myself every time I talk to Justice, he's very mature, but he's still a true freshman, right? And there's still a lot of growth for him too. It's like sometimes we hold those guys to a different standard that were here in spring, but inevitably he and Ethan Burke are still true freshmen together. So big future, big upside for him. And Michael Taft is kind of a bit of a Swiss Army knife. He's a guy that can play multiple positions, very smart, great leadership. He's a guy who's actually, as a walk-on, is on our leadership council. I think that he's got a great voice, and he finds a way. He's got a knack for finding the ball and making plays, whether it's on defense or special teams.
What kind of impact does Keelan's personality have on the locker room? And when you've got a guy that may not get 20 touches a game but still buys in the way he's seemingly buying in,
Yeah.
how big is that for the locker room?
Well, I think one thing Keelan provides is, he's an experienced guy. He's been around college football a lot. He's been around it at a high level. He's made a lot of big plays in his career at both stops. He's interesting because he's very confident. So he can have a little bit more fun. He's a little bit more loose. And I think that that's good for our young players to realize it's still the game, right? As hard as we want to coach it and we want to play it, when you're confident and you can be relaxed, sometimes that's when we play at our best. And Keelan has the ability to do it. He's very versatile. He's mature. And I do think he has a positive impact on our younger players because he knows what the standard is and what's acceptable and what's not. And he's not afraid to share it, so that part's been good.
He said he was going to ask you if you could get his music played before games. Is that something you can make happen?
I might know somebody that can help with that. We got some work to do there, so we'll see.
Coach,
Last
with
year,
the player movement, it's not so unusual, but have a guy like Tariq who competed against you as a conference opponent and now integrating him into your system, presumably to be a guy that's going to be counted on. What's that process like to see a guy shift gears to another program that he's competed against?
Well, I think one thing, big picture, is I think this is the world we're in now. I've talked a lot about the ability to adapt, and these are the times of college football. Transfer portal's real, and so you have to be adaptable to it. And I think for the most part, it's been favorable to us. Tariq has been a great addition. Anytime you can get a veteran player who's competed at a high level in big games, coming from a good program like Iowa State, I think he's been a great addition. I think one side of it for me is, when you talk to him, I think he thought coming to Texas it was going to be, a lot of glitz and glamour, and he found out we've got a really good culture here. And I take that as a compliment coming from a guy whose program was kind of built on their culture. So that was sometimes the portal can help you there too, that it can help you with, man, we're kind of on the right path of what we're doing. And so I think he recognizes how hard we work, what kind of culture we have, and has integrated himself nicely into our team.
How's Quinn been looking, this week? And I'm kind of curious from a development standpoint, what do you do with Malik during the season to kind of continue with his development? He's kind of a scout team guy. I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, I think Quinn has had a good week. I've seen some plays where it's like, okay, we're starting to take another step with him. You know, some really big time throws on third down. Some of his playmaking in the pocket, made a nice play in 2 minutes today, actually using his legs to create an explosive play. So we're starting to make the strides that I was hopeful for. You know, with Malik and with a lot of the guys that are kind of threes, we try to have opportunities where our threes are not just doing scouts, but they're actually working our offense and our defense, competing against one another. But then to make sure that they're still getting reps, you have to get some of that scout team work, because that's what keeps the speed of the game up for them when they got to go against that first defense or that second defense. So all in all, continue to develop, right? We got to dig into what are the things we need him to work on and want him to work on. And then we got to keep pushing for him to do that. And then we got to celebrate the small victories. I think that's something, when a guy's not a frontline player, the season can be long. And so you want to be able to celebrate the small victories for not just the quarterback, but anybody, whether it's you're focusing on effort. When they're playing with great effort, you got to make sure we celebrate that. Or when they make an adjustment on a read and then they do it, man, we got to celebrate that, because we want to make sure we're keeping those guys motivated in a positive light, because they definitely have an impact on our team.
Sark, what have you learned about, through your experience, about coaching your coaches? Like, you know, you've worked for Carroll, you've worked for Saban. What's your approach to coaching?
Well, I think two things. One is you want to communicate really well, and you want to be really well organized. And I think that you know, we do that. You know, we meet every morning, and we understand what our schedule is for the day. We understand you know, what the practice plan is and how we want to practice and who's where on the depth chart and different things. But you want to be organized, you want to communicate well. But two, I think you have to set expectations. And then from there, you have to be willing to address when expectations aren't being met. And that could be in style of play, it could be how we're playing the players, it could be how we're recruiting, whatever that is. It could be, you know, how we managing our players off the field. But as long as you communicate well, you set expectation, and you're organized, then, in my opinion, then it's okay to be really demanding of what the expectations are. And we've got great rapport on our staff. I've always gotten a little frustrated, or listened to coaches at other places get frustrated when they don't know what the expectations are, or they don't know X, Y, or Z, and then the coach wants to get on them. And so I've always been of the mindset, and I've been fortunate to have worked for some great coaches, whether it's Pete Carroll, Norv Turner, Dan Quinn, Nick Saban, really well organized, you know, set a high standard, but yet expectations of what was expected of them, and then held you to the standard. And that, as a coach, that's all you can ask for, because you know what's expected of you.